You were selected especially for this episode.
Good.
I could smell. Can you smell it sitting right here?
No.
I can. But mine's right.
Oh,
under my
yeah,
nose.
yours is right under.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to the Hallowhiskey special of Whiskey Noobs. Hi there, Whiskey Noobs, and it should be pretty close to Halloween by the time I post this. I believe the day before Halloween. But before we get to the Hallowhiskey special, my name is Chris, and I'm the host of the show. And today we have back on the show, after a little bit of a hiatus, Mr. Justin.
Hello, I'm back.
You're back, and you're about to drink something that you drink on fairly regular occasions.
It's either going to be a trick or treat.
That's a great way of putting that.
Yeah.
You were planning that this whole time. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking. So we're going to be drinking certain whiskeys, but we're also going to be talking about other whiskeys. I want to kind of mention whiskeys that remind me of fall, most of which you have had, and then talk about why they remind me of fall. But in the meantime, as we're doing that, we're going to be trying what you have in front of you. So I'm going to, as I did last year, if you were around last year, you might remember I made some mixed drinks for the Halloween special. Shout out to Crown and Cran, and then also, so that's Crown Apple and Cranberry Juice. And then also I made like a whole recipe last year that I don't know off the top of my head, but you can listen to that episode.
How long have you been podcasting for?
Probably.
So it's been over a year.
Half.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's been like a year and a half, I think. So I wanted to shout out those drinks. If you didn't listen to last year's special, go ahead and listen to them. The one mixed drink I made there, I really, really liked. It had, I think, 7-Up, apple juice, apple cider. It had a bunch of different stuff in it, and then a couple different flavored whiskeys. But today, we are focusing in on a whiskey that reminds me of Halloween, and also it could work for Christmas as well, because it's a little bit cinnamony.
Yeah.
But we're of course talking about Fireball, but that's not the featured whiskey of this episode. Fireball is what we're going to be comparing to. We're comparing to Fireball because we're drinking Jim Beam Kentucky Fire, I believe they call it. Kentucky Fire, which is basically Jim Beam's version of Fireball.
So, OG is Fireball.
Yep.
Jim Beam, is it going to be a knockoff, or you think it's going to be better?
I could go either way because I've had Jack Fire. Have you had Jack Fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it way more than Fireball.
I can't remember the last time I had it.
The reason I know this is because when I did have it, I was specifically thinking of Fireball, and I was like, I want to know how this stacks up. To me, it was way less like syrupy and sweet on my gut, and so I really liked it. It was actually like easier to drink. I'm not a very huge fan of Fireball. I should start by saying that. But I think it works for what we're going to be drinking. There's a specific reason that we're doing this.
So my question going into this, Jim Beam, I mean, they make their bourbon, they make their whiskey, and then you got Jack make their own Fireball. Where does that come from?
It's just, as far as I know, I don't know the company that owns like Fireball. I'm assuming it's a larger distiller, actually. I can look that up real quick. But as far as I know, Fireball itself is kind of like a Jägermeister, where it's just like it's its own weird thing.
We're gonna make this cinnamon whiskey and we're gonna kill it.
Yeah, exactly. That was what they went with.
Yep.
And they call it a whiskey. They call it a whiskey with a Y, like no E. Fireball specifically, and I don't know the reasoning for that, to be honest. Usually in America, maybe it has to do with who distills it, but usually in America you have the E on the end. Okay, so it is produced by Sazerac, so actually the people who own Buffalo Trace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so a lot of alcohol is produced by Sazerac or one of the other big companies. So
I never noticed that. There's no E in it.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah. Next time I have it, I'm going to be like, hey, party trick, guys. There's no E.
It's like one of those Mandela effects,
Yeah.
where it's like what's one? Bernstein Bears. It's spelled all weird. There's a cereal one. I think it might be Fruit Loops. That it's spelled it's spelled fruit and not F-R-O-O-T. Everybody thought it was. Anyhow, you could do that and you're going to blow people's minds, especially if they've had a few Fireballs. So let's start off. Here's what we're going to do. I want to talk about different whiskeys that remind me of fall, Halloween in general, but we've also got a few different things to drink in front of us. So let's drink the first one, and then we'll talk about how it tastes, and then we'll talk about one of the types of whiskey that reminds me of fall. I want to bounce it off you and get your opinion. You've had each of these types of whiskeys that I'm going to bring up. all of which on the show, I think. So I want to bounce them off you and see if you agree that they give me fall vibes. So let's start off. I need to smell and remember which color's which.
Blue's a cider.
Blue's a cider? Okay.
Yep.
Let's start with the blue. So we'll start with this is apple cider and Jim Beam Kentucky Fire.
Yep.
And this is our first taste of Jim Beam. At the end, we're going to do these mixed drinks, get an idea for what the Jim Beam tastes like mixed. Then we're going to compare Jim Beam and Fireball and actually side by side, neat, which is not how I would normally drink a flavored whiskey, and see what we think. So let's start with the blue here. We've got basically 2 parts of Jim Beam Kentucky Fire, 1 part of apple cider. I'm not going to actually shoot this. I put it in disposable shot glasses, but I'm going to just take a drink of it. Now, this is my first ever impression of Jim Beam Kentucky Fire. I want your thoughts.
I don't think it's as sweet as Fireball.
Okay.
Fireball's super sweet. Like you said, it's syrupy.
Yeah.
But this actually, it's toned down a little bit. It's just like a little hint of cinnamon.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be hardcore. I really want to know what it tastes like now after tasting this. But cider's super sweet.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of like works in contrast of what we're actually drinking. So it balances out pretty good. I don't think it's as sugary as Fireball.
Yes.
But not knowing what it tastes like neat, I'm not really entirely sure.
Fair enough. Maybe we should do the neat next so that we have our Fireball basis.
Yep.
Let's do that next. But as for the apple cider with the Jim Beam in it, I really like it compared to what I think I would like with Fireball because of what you said. It's not as syrupy sweet as I think of when I think of Fireball, and so you almost get the sweetness of the cider with the cinnamon instead of the sweetness of the cider plus the sweetness of the Fireball plus the sweetness of the cinnamon. You just get the cider and the cinnamon. But
it is good.
Yeah.
It is really good.
Not too bad, right?
Reminds you of a candy apple.
That is exactly what it reminds you of. Or like apple pie.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give us some little Glencairns. We got to make sure we don't mix them up. Normal size Glencairns, little pours, to be clear. So the first whiskey, while I'm pouring these, that I want to talk about that reminds me of fall is any peated whiskey, but specifically Lafroig reminds me of fall.
If you did not say that, I was going to be upset.
Right.
It tastes like leaves.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is because it's like burning leaves.
Yeah.
Which, if you, depending on where you grew up, you probably smelled your neighbors burning their leaves a lot in the fall.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, it's like when a bunch of leaves are laying on the ground because it's fall, and then it rains because we are in Ohio and it does that, and the leaves all get packed all together. That's what Lafroig tastes like.
I almost think it would taste better in the fall. Just because the leaves are falling, like you smell the leaves, you smell that everything around, and then if you have it in spring, it's like, why am I tasting fall?
For sure, I favor peated scotches in the fall because it goes with the vibe. Like you said, when I do it in like, and I drink them all year round, but when I drink one like in the spring or the summer, I'm like,
yeah,
I feel like fall right now, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel like I'm enjoying. Yeah, exactly. So. First one that I want to mention for those of you who are trying to think, what do I like in the fall? And this can last all the way through Thanksgiving. These are all fall whiskeys. I think a peated scotch in the fall, maybe at like a bonfire, that's big time fall vibes.
I don't think it's a winter drink though.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the leafy earthiness.
Yep.
You don't have like any earthiness in the wintertime because everything's covered in ice.
Wintertime, everything's dead.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, Ohio sucks.
Right. Right. In the winter, I'd almost favor like a really strong kick your butt bourbon.
I want something
rye.
warm.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's cold, so it's like, might as well warm something up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So I think as we established, Lafroig for sure because of the leafy earthiness. And then peated scotches in general.
Yep, just
Peated
in
whiskey.
general.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the Fireball, you got the cinnamon. Everything related to fall, everything related to winter, it's cinnamon.
Right.
So it's going to be perfect for both occasions.
Yeah.
But then Lafroig, you just got that peat. The peat just screams, hey, leaves are falling. I'm going to drink this in the fall.
Yes, absolutely. And like I should mention for those who listen to my Ardbeg 10-year episode, Ardbeg is also peated. And it's a little bit, it still gives fall vibes for sure because it's got that smoky earthiness that the peat brings to it. But specifically, Lafroig just has this leafy to it that really works well in the fall.
That's the one characteristic I see. That's like this screams fall, and then it kind of goes to like smoky.
Right.
Because, I mean, with the fire and everything, that smoke, that characteristic, that's what you think of. And then when you drink, you want some characteristics of fall and wintertime. And those are the two, like, huge things that I see.
Right. You're having your bonfires, or in the wintertime, you're having something in your fireplace. Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of fire, let's try. Should we start with the classic, the OG, or should we start with the Jim Beam? I'll let you decide.
I think we should go Fireball.
Fireball first? Okay, I think that's fair. Let's rinse our palate off a little bit with our water. Should have got some lemons to bite.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's try our Fireball here. An official Glencairn tasting. I'm not even going to nose it, but I'll do it real quick. Yeah, cinnamon. It smells like cinnamon.
I mean, the colors are even different.
They are. I noticed
Super
that as
different.
well. Fireball's a lot.
So much darker.
Yeah. Which makes me think a lot more flavoring.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why it's going to be a lot more sweet, I think.
I think much more artificial.
Yeah. Let's give it a shot. I'll be totally honest with you right now. That's the first time I've drank straight Fireball in a really long time. And that is so sweet. That is like, it tastes like you dumped cinnamon into maple syrup and put like an ounce of whiskey in it.
The more it's in your mouth, I think the thicker it gets.
It's like...
Because I was tasting it. I wasn't just going to shoot it down. I actually wanted to taste it. And I'm like, okay, it's turning into syrup.
Yeah.
It felt thicker like the more it was in my mouth.
If you move it around like you do with like a real whiskey, I say real whiskey, that might make some people mad. But like move it around on your tongue, the Kentucky Chew, it's like Play-Doh on your tongue or molasses or something.
Every time I've had Fireball, I've just took it like a shot.
Yeah.
And that was 2 weeks ago.
And now, so you're like, yep, tastes like Fireball.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually tasting it is like, I understand why I take it as a shot now.
Yeah.
And I think it really, I'm not going to lie, I always thought Fireball was sweeter than like Jack Fire, probably sweeter than this Jim Beam Fire. That was like so sweet. Like that was sweeter than I thought Fireball was.
To actually taste it, it's like, holy moly, it's sweet.
Yeah. So let's get another sip of water here, and then we'll move to the Jim Beam.
What was your best part of the Fireball?
That's a good question. The best part was the type of like candy cinnamon that it is reminds me of those cinnamon smelly covered pine cones that you can get. You know what I'm talking about? They sell them at Walmart does, or like craft stores. And you put them out like on your mantle in the fall and winter time.
Oh yeah.
And it reminds me of those, which I always loved the smell of. But weird as it is, tasting it not so bad. Actually swallowing it was the worst part because it was so like sweet.
What's the little red like?
Oh, I think Fireballs. I think they're called Fireballs. Yeah.
That makes sense.
That does make sense actually.
Because like the longer you keep a Fireball in your mouth, like it turns into that syrupy taste that you taste right now.
Right.
Because with all the sugar, it kind of gets like mucus in your mouth or whatever.
Right. Yeah, like thickens it up.
Yeah.
That's
That's exactly how it tasted.
So here's to hoping the Jim Beam is better. Let's give it a quick try, and then we'll move on to the other shot glass that you have in front of you. That was way different.
Way different. Dialed back a ton when it comes to the cinnamon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I need some water. I need to try that again.
The more it sits in my mouth, the more cinnamon I get.
Yes.
So the initial taste of Fireball, it's like, hello, here it is.
Right.
The initial taste of Jim Beam's like, oh, that's pretty subtle. It's pretty good. And now I'm sitting here and I'm just like, wait a second. It's still lingering around in my mouth.
100%. I think it's like, as weird as this sounds to say, hopefully it makes sense. It's like Fireball is cinnamon liqueur. Jim Beam, or let's just call it cinnamon whiskey. That might make some folks mad. It's like a cinnamon whiskey. Whereas Jim Beam is like whiskey with some kind of cinnamon syrup added.
Yeah.
That's what it like I'm getting more of the whiskey, but you still get the cinnamon.
It's infused.
It's more like it's infused. But it also, kind of arrives separately. Like you said, at first you don't even, maybe it's because we did the Fireball first, but at first you don't even really get the cinnamon.
Oh, I'm going back to the Fireball after this.
Yeah, I want to really try to clean off my palate to clean that cinnamon off, and I'm going to try the Jim Beam again real quick. I'm getting something other than cinnamon that I'm not going to lie to you, I don't really like, and I don't know what it is.
I like it.
Dude.
I know what you're tasting, but I can't.
I think it might be like clove.
Like a nutmeg.
Nutmeg.
That's
yes,
exactly
that was going to be the
thinking.
second thing I was going to say.
I'm saying nutmeg.
I think it's almost a mixture of the two. If you ever had like allspice, it's like a mixture of spices that they use for baking or whatever. It's like that where it's got that bitterness to it. Now it's way easier to drink than the Fireball because it's way less thick in your mouth. I mean, this is like drinking water compared to maple syrup.
Are you drinking this neat?
No, I'm not. Like I am right now, but normally, heck no,
Not happening.
Because that is punching me. It is like a clovey nutmeg. Have you ever? You probably didn't get any fillings because they knocked out like 400 of your teeth as a kid. Did you ever get a filling?
No, 14 teeth gone.
Yeah. So if you ever got a filling as a kid, it had this like clovey taste to it. That's what this reminds me of.
I believe you.
Yeah, and that is bothering me. That's really bothering. Let's go back to the Fireball.
They gave me no filling.
No
it was
filling.
called sleeping gas.
Yeah. And you woke up
and
with
then I
half your
woke
teeth
up
gone?
and I could chew corn and there'd be like tons of rows missing.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back. I never thought I'd say this. Let's do the Fireball again. Cheers. Here's what I'll say for the Fireball. Never been a very big fan, but they nail the cinnamon candy flavor on the head compared to the Jim Beam.
100%.
Like, those Fireballs you mentioned, it's just like those.
And I give it to them. I mean, they're going for something, and they killed it. They crushed it.
They did.
Jim Beam's it's a knockoff. I wouldn't say it's a knockoff, but it's a different version of Fireball.
Right.
And you expect that Fireball, and it's not there. And you're like, wait a second.
Yes.
I wanted Fireball.
I think what Jim Beam is going for, they accomplished. I think your bourbon lover is going to like this more, except for the fact that the portion of the Jim Beam that is cinnamon is this weird nutmeggy, clovey cinnamon.
Yeah.
It might be good in like eggnog because eggnog's good with like some nutmeg.
I'm thinking Jim Beam Fire is meant to mix when Fireball is just like, okay, I want this single flavor. I want nothing else related to it. I'm taking it straight.
Shots.
Yep.
99% of the time. 99% of the time.
Shots.
Shots. Or mixed with something like weird, which is what we're about to do actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so before we get to the next mix, I do want to talk about another type of whiskey that I think is a great fall whiskey, and I want your opinion on it. So the type of whiskey, I'll give you an example because you may not know when I say this, but the type of whiskey is high rye bourbons. So Bullet Bourbon is an example of this. And I like them in the fall because in a weird way, especially, have you had Wild Turkey 101?
Yes.
Okay. That's like one of the most well-known high rise in that price range. In a weird way, those remind me of like cherry pie because you get this rye spiciness from it being high rye with this dark fruity bourbon, if it's a dark fruit bourbon. Bullet's a little bit more of a light fruit bourbon.
And that's where I was like, light fruit. I don't know if it's got to have that dark, bold flavor deep.
Right.
And I don't know if Bullet has that.
I don't know about Bullet so much, but Wild Turkey 101
Okay.
really to me does. And if you don't remember, we can actually try it. I do have some.
What don't you have?
That's a great question. Not enough. There's plenty that I don't have. But I like high rye bourbons in the fall, honestly, because kind of like we mentioned, you want a little bit of a kick. They give you a little bit of a kick. They got the spiciness. Your wheated bourbons are going to be very sweet. The high rye is going to have this nice baking spice, a little bit of black pepper maybe, but then with the fruit of the bourbon, depending on how the bourbon is made. So maybe that's a good point. Maybe it depends on the high rye. What type of fruit are you getting with the spicy?
Can you go wrong with bourbon though? Like
Hey.
any time.
Not for you. You are a bourbon guy through and through. All right, so let's get to this next one. So I'm not going to tell you what this is. I'm going to make sure it's mixed with my pinky here. I'm not going to tell you what this is yet. I promise you it's perfectly edible. But I want you to drink about half of it and tell me what it tastes like to see if this is fake or not, that it's actually supposed to taste like this. Because I've had it. I thought it kind of did. And then I'm going to tell you what it's supposed to taste like, and then I want you to drink the second half of it and see if you agree or not. All right? And you'll see me drink it, so you know it's not poison. I don't think I added enough of the whiskey.
I know what it is.
Okay.
But
what does it taste like? So what was it?
I don't know yet, but I do.
Oh, you're saying you recognize it.
I recognize it. This is just making me mad.
Yeah. You've definitely had whatever it is a lot. But what does it remind you of?
Sadly, it reminds me of apple cider again.
Yeah, it's probably giving off those vibes because of the fireball in it. So, what you're drinking is pineapple juice with the Jim Beam Fire. I got this from TikTok, actually. I did a TikTok on it a while ago. What it tastes like, and I think I got the ratio a little bit wrong, so I did like 2-to-1. I think we needed, it's almost could have been 1-to-1. But what it tastes like, now I want you to try it and I want you to think about it. I'm going to say it as you're sipping it. Pumpkin pie. Not too bad, right?
Yeah.
When I did this, I think it was pumpkin. I'm hoping it was pumpkin pie. I'm pretty sure it was, because that's what it reminds me of. I remember thinking, like, it's not exact by any means. Like, you wouldn't drink it and say pumpkin pie. That's why I wanted to do it in 2 phases like that.
I don't eat much pumpkin pie.
Okay. Fair enough.
I like pumpkin pudding and stuff like that.
Okay.
Pumpkin cookies and everything. So the pumpkin spice I clearly have enough of.
Right.
But something about the texture of pumpkin pie I just can't get past.
Oh, really? See, I like it. I love pumpkin pie. But what I said about it when I tried it on TikTok and what I stick with now is it's not a mix that you would, and this is meant to be done as a shot, I think. It's not one that you would drink and say, oh, that's a pumpkin pie shot. Mm-hmm. But if somebody told you it was a pumpkin pie shot and you drank it, you'd say, yeah, that was a pumpkin pie shot.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is why I kind of did that in 2 phases. I wanted you to try it and see if you could say it, which I figured you wouldn't because that's what I thought, and then tell you about it. And it's like, oh, okay.
It's there. If you mix the two together and you're like, hey, this is supposed to taste like it, you probably wouldn't. But if someone's like, hey, this is what it is, then you're like, oh, okay, I can taste it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, it was a little bit better with the Fireball. I made this with the Jim Beam. It was a little bit better with Fireball. It had a little bit more of the spiciness because that Fireball really does have better cinnamon in it. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for sure. Yeah, so that is the next drink of this episode, which I think makes a great shot, personally. But you could mix it. Maybe you could throw in some ice and maybe throw in some slices of pineapple. I don't know.
Have you had a chocolate cake shot?
I have not. What's in a chocolate cake shot?
I don't know, but it's amazing.
Okay.
It is one of those shots that I'm just, if someone tells you this is a chocolate cake shot, you're taking it.
Really?
And you're like, that is exactly chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake.
They put a little lemon on the side and usually sugar the rim. Oh,
really?
It's clear.
Wow. I always like that when it doesn't look like it should taste the way it tastes. That's awesome. I wonder what's in it.
Oh, it's good.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to try that sometime. One that I really like that could have been part of this episode is an alien brain hemorrhage. Have you ever had that?
No.
They are wild looking. It's not the strongest shot in the world. You take peach schnapps and you fill it most of the way. And then you do this in a clear shot glass. And then you use a spoon to float a little bit of Bailey's on top so that it's got like a little top on it.
Yeah.
And then you drip through it with grenadine. And so it literally looks like chunks of brain basically dripping down through. And it tastes delicious. It tastes like candy. Looks disgusting. Because you got peach, you got grenadine.
Do the textures like mix it up?
Normal. It's just like 3 different densities of liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't get like chunky like a cement mixer if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have to try it sometime. I'll have to make you one. They're pretty solid. I've made them before. They're really hard because you got to float the Baileys and not.
It's a showpiece.
It's a very showy shot. That's for sure. I actually got one on my 21st birthday. It was a free shot. And the guy was like, what do you want? I was like, dude, I don't know. And then he made that. And I was like, that was cool.
Well worth it.
Well worth it. So that is not my recipe. That's just what I had.
Mm-hmm.
But just to summarize the 2 different whiskeys that I mentioned, I think the one we can very much agree on, Lefroy.
Lefroy for sure. And then Wild Turkey, I think, would come in number 2. And then the Bull's number 3. I don't know of any other like Buffalo Trace. It's just an all year round bourbon.
Right.
And I think almost like selling those brands, it's just like, hey, this one's good for year round is probably why they do so well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they don't the best selling ones. I actually feel this way about like Jameson as well. The best selling in the categories, they are the most kind of the best selling bourbon is the bourbon that just tastes like bourbon. It doesn't taste like bourbon with a very heavy fruity note. It just tastes like bourbon, you know? That's what people go for. Jameson is just the most Irish whiskey tasting Irish whiskey. It doesn't have these super strong sherry notes, these super strong malty notes. It's just the most Irish tasting Irish whiskey. And I think you're fully right. They do that as like a marketing almost.
And then what's your summertime drink? I mean, that one screams summer, but what is it about it that screams summer?
That's a really good question. What is a summertime drink? I think almost, definitely scotches that give me citrus notes, like Monkey Shoulder. Do you remember Monkey Shoulder? Yes, from the episode 22, I think, if I remember correctly.
Scotch, right?
Yes, it's a blended scotch, and it gives me real strong citrus vibes.
Yes.
So anything with
we
citrus.
had that smoking cigars in one night.
Yeah, we did. That's right. And then if you remember the Finding Your Palate episode with you comparing everything.
Oh yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, that was one of them that you tried was the Monkey Shoulder.
Yeah.
So I think that's episode 22 for those listening. And then the high rye bourbons. The thought with the high rye bourbons is that they give you the sweetness of the bourbon with the spiciness of the rye. But I think to your point, it has to be the right kind of high rye bourbon, and not just any. Because if it has those lighter fruit notes with the spiciness,
anything light, it gives me anything bold. It's like this is more Christmas, more fall. Anything light and citrusy, like you said, it's more summertime.
Yes. I would almost go around Christmas time, maybe a little sneak peek, something wheated. If you remember the Larceny, which I know you weren't too huge of a fan of, but they're very sweet with the bourbon notes. In wintertime, you're thinking like Christmas cookies and sweet things, you know?
Something dark, rich flavor. I mean, when it comes to Christmas, how many cookies do you eat? I mean, you might not eat a bunch, but me, I'm eating a dozen and a half.
Oh, yeah.
In one sitting.
It's at least one per day. It's like, wake up, that looks good. Get ready to go to bed, that looks good.
Yeah. Breakfast,
lunch, dinner, you know. You got to have one with your coffee, but you got to have one at night, of course, you know. Yeah. Fully agreed here.
And then that almost brings up, I mean, I don't put creamer in my coffee, but like I just drink a dark, bold coffee in the morning, and I don't have much in summertime.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to warm up in the wintertime. So I think that even accounts to that bitterness and just a bolder drink.
Yep. I totally agree. I think I have a good winter whiskey that maybe I'll surprise you with for an episode or something. That'd be a good episode. We'll have to do the same idea. We'll do it early in the wintertime, like maybe after Thanksgiving or something. Yeah. So those are the whiskeys that remind me of fall. Now, I do want your opinion. We tried 2 different mixes, the pumpkin pie mix and then the apple cider mix. There's a clear favorite for me, but I definitely want your opinion on the 2 of them, what you thought. Because my thought is people are going to be listening to this and then maybe have Halloween parties. Maybe the Halloween party's already passed, but it's going to be fall time, and they're going to want something to drink. So what are your thoughts of these 2 that we tried?
The apple cider, I mean, you can clearly tell it's apple in it. So anytime you go to a party and you see apple cider mixed with something, with cinnamon, that's a go-to. I clearly think that's my favorite by far. The pineapple, it's good, but pineapple, I think of like beaches and things like that. There's not that strong of pumpkin into it, other than the cinnamon.
Right.
The cinnamon, that like faint, maybe, I don't remember, like tartness of pineapple. But if you put it in a jar and said pumpkin spice drink or something, I'm probably going to keep drinking that until I figure out like, okay, I taste it now, but I wouldn't know. I'd be so curious because I'm like, there's not pineapple in there.
Right.
It'd be the last thing for me to think.
Exactly. That's like you were having trouble recognizing that it was pineapple juice. That's what's so weird about it.
Because pineapple's such a summer thing, and I'm thinking fall. Like, what could it be?
Right.
So I never expected it, and it wasn't that like surprising, but I knew the taste.
Right. I just looked it up to make sure I was right. It is pumpkin pie that it's supposed to taste like, which is what I thought. Because I try it, and if I think of pumpkin pie, I'm like,
Yeah.
I could see it. Like I said, if somebody ordered that for you at a bar and was like, it's a pumpkin pie shot, you'd probably take it and be like, it's kind of a pumpkin pie shot.
And I probably wouldn't want to have it in the summertime.
Oh, no.
No, just because it has the cinnamon in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Pineapple could be mixed with so many different things.
I love like pineapple juice with some kind of a rum-based drink in the summertime.
Oh, yeah.
Blue Hawaiians, good stuff.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah,
but
big
like
fan.
with the cinnamon, you're like, okay, no, that's I'm drinking that in the fall.
Yeah, you're like, something
So
else is going
clearly
on.
it is a fall drink just because of the cinnamon. I think cinnamon takes it home
Yes.
every time.
Yeah. Now, I'm a complete sucker for apple cider. So apple cider with a little bit of cinnamon whiskey in it, that I agree with you. That's my favorite.
Yep.
If I was taking a shot, though, so like around St. Patty's Day, I love like, I don't know if we're allowed to call them that anymore, but it's a bomb drink that you drink. And you take half Bailey's, half Jameson, and you drop it into Guinness and drink it. And it tastes like chocolate milk almost. So I like to have like a themed type of drink, and I think as far as it like impressing / confusing people, the pineapple juice and Fireball is the way to go.
Speaking of chocolate milk and Fireball, you have
You were
to try
telling
it.
me this.
You have to try it.
So okay, explain to me your process. You briefly explained it to me before this episode. What do you do?
It's the same thing. It's like 2 parts chocolate milk, 1 part Fireball.
Okay.
And you just mix it together, and it's like a cinnamon chocolate milk.
It
I mean,
just
you
tastes
can't.
like chocolate cinnamon.
It's good.
We're gonna have to try this at some point.
Yes, it's actually really good. And I'm not going to drink. First of all, I'm not going to drink milk in the heat of summer.
Very true.
And second of all, cinnamon reminds me of fall.
Maybe that's the winter version.
So I would have it. I mean, if I wanted to have something before bed, I might go to chocolate milk and
Before
cinnamon.
bed.
Yeah.
I can't think of a time that I've had something chocolate cinnamon.
Yeah, it's
Usually
good.
it's like vanilla cinnamon or chocolate,
You
not
gotta try
chocolate
it.
cinnamon.
You have to try
I'm gonna have
it.
to give this a try. I'm gonna have to do it. I'm intrigued now.
You know those little milk cartons you got at school?
Yes.
Grab one of those, take a whole shot of Fireball, pour it in there, shake it up, and slug that thing.
That's such a terrible twist on school milk.
Yeah. Should not have said that in school.
No, it's hilarious though. Okay, I'm gonna have to try this at some point because I genuinely don't think I've ever had something that's. I'm trying to think like chocolate cinnamon, like maybe a mocha coffee is a
Yeah.
little bit like that. I don't know.
But if you have kids, tell them to bring home a chocolate milk.
Bring Dad an extra
Yeah.
chocolate
What
milk
do you want
home.
that for? Don't worry about it.
Dad's gonna drink it tonight while he's watching football.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so apple cider and Fireball. Well, actually, in this case, Jim Beam Fire. I think it's a real go with the Jim Beam Fire because it doesn't get so sweet.
Yes. Jim Beam Fire, I think it's good because it's subtle.
Yes.
It's because I like the cider. Like, I
Yeah.
wanted more cider than liquor.
Yes.
And I'm getting that from the Jim Beam. And I'm afraid with Fireball, it would be too much cinnamon.
Yes.
It'd be like, I want more cider, but the Fireball's just taking over.
Yeah, I'm even going to go out on a limb and say I'd prefer the Jim Beam when mixing and prefer the Fireball when drinking straight.
Yep.
That's kind of...
You have that one flavor from Fireball, and then Jim Beam just gives you a hint.
Exactly. Because you're not going to mix a cinnamon whiskey with something that's or not sweet, like something that's dry. Like you're not going to mix a cinnamon whiskey with like club soda or something.
No.
So you want the whiskey to be a little bit drier.
Yeah.
Fireball is like molasses in your mouth, dude. It's wild.
But with chocolate milk being thick,
True.
it works. It works.
I need to try this. I need to try it with a Jim Beam too.
I don't know if it'd be as good.
It's not as much cinnamon.
No.
That's what I'll say about the Jim Beam. Not as much cinnamon, which a lot of whiskey drinkers are probably going to prefer, but the cloviness is what I just cannot do. The nutmeggy, clovey, whatever that is.
I'm not drinking it straight, but it is good to mix. Because it gives you a little clove, a little nutmeg inside your apple cider. Those two work well together. The hint of cinnamon, that works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, I totally agree. It gives you, like with the apple cider, it lets you taste the apple cider.
What's your thoughts on the other drink?
With the Jim Beam instead. Actually, I'm glad you asked. I think it's better with the Fireball because I think the Fireball,
Really?
if you wanted to taste like pumpkin pie,
Yep.
because I think the Fireball covers up the pineapple a lot more.
I think the pineapple's a little light.
Yeah.
So I think the Fireball being as potent as it is, I think it might kind of overpower it. And instead of tasting more pineapple, you taste more cinnamon, which kind of throws you off what you're thinking, hey, it's a pumpkin pie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get that little bit of what I can only describe as like when you mix the Fireball with the pineapple juice, it almost tastes vegetable-y, is the only way I can describe it, believe it or not. And that vegetable-y with the cinnamon is what tastes like pumpkin pie. That's what I remember from trying it. And you definitely need the brute force of Fireball being like, I'm cinnamon. You need that.
It's a great word. Brute force
Yeah.
is what Fireball is.
It really is.
It overpowers pineapple, and then you want more apple cider than Fireball. So I think that's the word.
Yes. It kicks down your door and it says, I am cinnamon flavored. And you're like,
It's like the Kool-Aid Man, but Fireball.
they should make the Fireball Man. He kicks down your door and he's like, I am cinnamon. The whole room catches on fire and you're like, why? Yeah. That's a great analogy. So, if that sounded scary to you, that's why we picked Fireball for the Hallowhiskey special.
And on top of that, they have a fire-breathing dragon as their logo.
Exactly. What's scarier than that?
It is a perfect Halloween drink.
What's scarier than the thought of checking your phone after a night of drinking too much Fireball? I don't think anything.
Ooh.
That's why it's the Hallowhiskey special.
I feel like a lot of people ruin Fireball for themselves.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. People are like, I can't. Because the taste, you don't forget that.
Yes.
You try that cinnamon once and you're like, okay, this is pretty good. You have it too many times and you're like, I'm not tasting that again.
Well, it's like we said. I mean, they nailed it.
Yep.
And so you try it, and if you get to the point where you train yourself not to like that taste,
You don't forget.
yeah, you're not getting that taste anywhere else.
No.
So you're done with Fireball.
You're going to have the
probably.
candy and you're probably going to be like, okay, I don't even like this anymore because I've had a bad experience.
You're probably totally right, to be entirely honest.
Yeah.
Yep. So to round it out, wrapping up our thoughts here, apple cider with the Jim Beam Fire, pretty solid.
Oh, it's solid.
I would drink that.
I would drink that.
Yes.
I would have actual couple servings of this.
Yeah, slice up an apple,
Yep.
throw it in there, maybe a cinnamon stick.
I wouldn't mind trying it warm either.
That'd be pretty good warm, I
Yeah.
bet. Yep. The pumpkin pie shot is it's only pumpkin pie if you tell somebody and you don't tell them what's in it.
And I think I want to try it with Fireball.
Yeah, we might have to take a sip when we get done here. I have more pineapple juice upstairs.
And then you got the bottles of shots of Fireball?
Yes.
Great marketing. They put them in sleeves. You can get a
Oh.
pack of like 10.
Yeah.
And then Jim Beam Fire, you're not going to get a pack of those.
Right. It's kind of like the 99 where they do like
Yeah.
99 bananas and all that.
Yep.
It's like the marketing. It's kind of goes against a little bit what I think when I think whiskey, and that is it's kind of like party marketing,
It is.
which is why a lot of people do not consider Fireball whiskey because it's a cinnamon liqueur basically.
Uh-huh.
But now we've got all these whiskey companies making cinnamon whiskey, so maybe Fireball is whiskey.
They got something going.
They
I
do.
mean, between all the big names, Jim Beam and Jack, to do something like this,
Right.
they clearly got people's attention.
I think maybe even Evan Williams and Wild Turkey. I'm not sure. I'm not certain on that, but I know they both do a lot of the flavors too.
Yeah.
So yeah, Fireball. Anytime a bunch of companies are copying you, you got something figured out. It's not for me, but they got it figured out. Maybe with chocolate milk, I'll give that a try. All right, this terrifying episode of Whiskey Noobs.
It was supposed to be spooky.
Exactly, and hey, it was. Now I'm picturing a fire-breathing dragon man kicking down my door, and
With a bottle of chocolate milk.
he's carrying a jug of chocolate milk. We can develop a whole scary story about that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. This spooky episode of Whiskey Noobs is coming to a close. Those are my thoughts. Jim Beam Fire, way less cinnamon than Fireball.
There's more characteristics to it. It's a better mixer.
Yes. If you like the clovey nutmegginess of like a a really clovey eggnog or like something with a lot of the allspice in it, you'll probably prefer the Jim Beam, especially if you like whiskey.
Yeah.
If you want whiskey that tastes like cinnamon, Jim Beam. If you want cinnamon that's labeled as whiskey, Fireball. I think that's the best way to summarize it.
Absolutely.
All right, that rounds out this Hallowhiskey episode of Whiskey Noobs. So thank you guys for listening. Hopefully, if you're on the email list and you bought the Jim Beam Kentucky Fire, you will find a way to enjoy it. Maybe you like it more than Fireball. Let me know if you do. I'm very curious to people's opinions because I'm so biased against like clovey, nutmeggy tastes. But that's all that I've got for this episode of Whiskey Noobs. So I'll leave you with, even if it is Fireball, even if you don't want to, if you want to learn to drink, you gotta drink it to learn.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Whiskey Noobs. If you like the show, please make sure to leave a 5-star rating or review to help grow the show and get the word out. You can also find more Whiskey Noobs content on Instagram at whiskey_noobs and on TikTok at Whiskey Noobs Podcast. If you want to drink right along with me, make sure to join the email list by sending an email to whiskeynoobspodcast@gmail.com with a subject line saying email list. You will receive monthly emails with a list of the whiskeys that will be featured throughout the month so that you can buy them ahead of time and drink right along with the show. Once again, thanks for listening to this episode. The Whiskey Noobs Podcast does not support underage or otherwise irresponsible consumption of alcohol.